Greetings! In today's video, I have two planes. Well, technically I'm going to be showcasing one because the other one I already have. This, with the red markings, is the F-18 Hornet from half a year ago, maybe more, I don't remember. And this one is the F-18 Hornet from, well, this morning, basically. And yesterday night. Yes. So yeah, I am going to go over, or the plan is to go over the improvements in my build style since I've made this small boy, and show a few developments in my techniques. The first noticeable difference is going to be the cockpit, because I started out this version with a brick-built cockpit rather than just using the cockpit block. I also kind of reversed the order in which I do things. I built a lot more of the shape of the front and then started planning out the wings rather than what I usually do, which is I usually go straight to the tail and start planning out vertical and horizontal tail fins. In this instance, I thought finding out what dimensions the wings would have would be a lot simpler to start off with. And therefore, you see, I am just experimenting, pushing things a little bit forward, a little bit backward, changing the angles to make sure that everything flows correctly. The second iteration of this is a lot more fulfilled. I have already started plotting out where I want my engines, my Dragon Jets to be, and so I've carved out a space for them underneath the wings, and I've started thinking about how I want the aesthetic part of the thrusters to look. So I have sconces inside, and they have hinges on each of the wedges on the sides so that they can open and close depending on what speed you're going at. In addition to that, I've added in the tail fins. These are obviously a lot larger than the previous version, but the founding principle is the same. You just have a piston pulling the powered tail fin into the body so that it has the shape that you want it to have while still maintaining strong aerodynamic properties. Another thing that I filled out here is the shape of the wings, which works out properly in relation to the rest of the body, although I will in later iterations shift the entire wing section forward by 2 blocks to make it look better. The two main differences to note here in comparison to the older version of this plane is that there's no Dragon Jets at the very back doing the work of thrust and aesthetics. I've separated those two functions by building thrusters with blocks. And the horizontal stabilizers, the horizontal tail fins, are moved by steering hinges rather than rotating servos. At this point, I've added in the vertical stabilizers. I've started plotting their shape out properly so that they match in scale to the rest of the body. And I've begun to add in the bulk of the undercarriage, as you might call it, smoothing out the shapes in the transitions from the main body to the nose cone and from the main body to the thruster pack. In addition to that, the entire bottom section has been filled with thrusters, and this means that as I'm building, I can begin to test the plane and its aerodynamic properties, see if it will fly in a relatively straight line, begin to find out if I need to add weight or take away weight from the front or the back, if I need more stabilization, things like that. This means that I also need to finish plotting out my control surfaces, which in this case, very simply, are the 2 horizontal stabilizers in the back, powered by steering hinges for pitch, and these small flaps on the rear of the wings act as roll. This version of the plane is very close to the final product. As is visible, I've added landing gear. I've filled in all of the gaps in the chassis, in the wings, in the tail fins. I've programmed the logic so that the cones on the rear thrusters can open and close depending on the speed. And there's some logic in there that allows for split throttle. Just for demonstration purposes, this is the landing gear on how it folds up. The front one has 2 hinges on it. It will fold towards the body and 90 degrees in relation to the body to make the wheel flat against the bottom of the neck. And the rear landing gear will very simply just pop up vertically. At this point, the plane is pretty well balanced. It flies rather well. The only complaint would be that it's not exceedingly fast. And that can very obviously be fixed by the next iteration, which is the drag glitch. As you can see, all the pieces fall off, which means that most of the aerodynamic properties of the plane are negated. Basically, this is the finalized version of the plane. All of the pieces are in place. I would like to add more, but the complexity limit will not allow. There's weaponry beneath the wings, rockets and smart cannons. The drag glitch is not as thorough as it could be, but again, complexity. All of the logic is embedded, and there are essentially no gaps. It's as clean as it can be. And so we come to the final version of the plane, which is painted very tentatively. I am not the best at painting stuff, therefore I'm pretty sure if I go over this paint job over the next couple days, I can get a little bit of a better result. But other than that, the shape of the plane works. Its flight functions quite well. I would like for it to go faster, but this works perfectly fine. It's pretty okay maneuverability, but again, it's quite large. It's 700 complexity, so it, you do what you can with what you're given, I guess. Aside from that, its weaponry will work serviceably, and it will fire rockets at your face. And just to compare it to its smaller counterpart, younger brother, older brother, technically, this will most likely have higher acceleration and be more maneuverable than the larger one. However, I will posit that it looks significantly worse, aside from the paint job, that is. Another thing I would consider on this is the fact that I didn't at that point do the hinge glitches on the wings in a very good way. These aren't as smooth as they could be, definitely. I have 2 extra pistons on the vertical tail fins, which I really didn't need to add in. All they do is add weight and bulk to the creation, alongside the rotating servos on the back, which are also unnecessary. And the landing gear is not, there's no wheels on this thing. It just has 2 pistons that pop up in the front. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this plane functions and looks. It's probably not going to win all of the dogfights in the world because it's a large target and it's not incredibly fast. And there you go. That's my breakdown of how I built the newest F-18 that I've made and how my build style has evolved since I've gotten better at the game. I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you in the future.